All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us here. USA Water Polo at home this week, all about memorable moments, important moments in the history of USA men's water polo. And if you're talking over the last 20, 30 years, you can't have a conversation like this without talking about the 2008 men's Olympic team in Beijing, China. They went from being ranked around 9th, 10th in the world to returning to the podium, first time in 20 years. Four members of that team joining us here today. Peter Hudnut, Jeff Powers, J.W. Krumpholz, and Ryan Bailey. Guys, good to talk to you. It's been far too long since we've all gotten together for a conversation here. This is largely a history lesson as we've been going through these different teams and eras all week long and kind of catching up the current generation to what's going on in the past. Peter, I'll start with you and just kind of looking back on this time. Your memories leading up to that Beijing team for you personally. I know you battled injuries in your career to be able to get back in the pool and stay in the pool. What do you remember about the lead up to Beijing and that fight to be a part of that team?
I don't think we have enough time, really. I mean, I had back surgery, two shoulder surgeries, and got cut from a previous Olympic team. So, I think the journey. Anytime you talk about that 2008 team, you got to keep in mind that, and Jeff or Bales, jump in. I think 9 or 10 of us had pretty much been training together for at least 7 or 8 years at that point. And J Dubs came in. I don't remember. You came at the end of Bracco or a little after. I can't remember. He was in high school still when he started training with us. But the journey was tumultuous to say the least. From the team perspective, but for me personally, it's what I always dreamed of. I wrote a poem as a 9-year-old kid saying I wanted to be an Olympian, and I had no idea what water polo was at the time. So for me, it was really just an opportunity to pursue a dream was worth the time, the effort, and the physical injuries and overcoming all that stuff. I had great support from the other guys on the team. Sadly, every time I got injured, and I know Bailey will probably have a joke about it, but I got injured quite a bit, and every time, they were always there for me in my corner, and I was always doing my rehab or whatever on the side of the pool. And it was a long journey, but definitely a great one that I miss and cherish. It was amazing.
Jeff, as Peter kind of touched on, and you were part of that 04 team, and it was a journey. For folks that don't know, you're talking about a lot of coaching changes, right? A different coach in 04, 05, 06. You get into 07, 08. Terry Schroeder comes on again as an assistant to the head coach. But this group really kind of galvanized around a lot of that change and really came together at the right time. What do you remember about those years leading up and the way this group came together despite all that adversity?
Well, thank you for having me here, of course. But yeah, there was a lot of change, and what I think that did for us is it made us become closer. And it's not that we didn't rely on our coaches, because we took something away from each coach we had, but with all that change, the only thing consistent was the guys on the team. And us bonding, us knowing that we could depend on each other, that we're there, kind of like Peter was saying, he knew that we'd be there for him when he got hurt. Even when he wasn't hurt, we were there for him. So all that kind of, I don't know, what do you want, angst, strife, whatever it is, kind of helped us come together. And I think that was what really kind of coalesced us as a team, just all the stuff, all the shared experiences, good and bad.
JW, as the guys alluded to, you're one of the younger guys at that point leading up to 08. I know you get some time there in the group as a teenager, but they're talking about a group that was training together for several years, guys that know each other well, 9, 10 years together. What's the challenge to be a younger guy to try and show you belong in that group?
Well, really the challenge for me was to kind of fit into the group and find my role. And I was lucky enough to, go to my first World Championships when I was 17, but, I wasn't really contributing to the team at that point. It really took a lot of time and effort in the pool, out of the pool, gaining the trust of the team that had been together for, 2 Olympic cycles prior to that. For me, the Olympic training cycle was a little different. I had to make the decision to take a semester off from USC. So I made that decision, and really a lot of the guys on the call today were overseas playing. So we started in January of that year with Terry and Robert Lynn, and we started with 25 players, and we moved all the way down to I think 13 was on our Olympic team. But for me, one of the main goals was to find my role and to help contribute, and that was really something that I wanted to push for my goals. And I think I had a lot of support from all the guys on the team. Really got me confident in myself and really how I can contribute.
For those that don't remember that era, or if you're watching the team leading up to 08, Peter, can you give us a sense here of the way the team performed in the pool, right? One of the reasons that made 08 so special was because a lot of people did not expect the team outside of the group. We know what you guys were working on, but the casual fan that maybe tunes in every 2 years was uncertain of what this team could accomplish. What were the results like in the years leading up to 08 as you tried to bring this group together?
Yeah, no, great question. I think we had our sporadic bouts of brilliance and some of true failure. And I think if you look back at that quadrennium, 2005, we had coaches come in and really tried to mix things up, and there was a dynamic that just wasn't clicking, wasn't working, and we had probably a mediocre to bad performance that summer, and that might be putting it nice. But that was actually one of the catalysts that kind of took us, the group that was sort of with Racco days and grinding it out, and we were kind of in that physical machine mentality. And that, I think, was kind of a catalyst to transition us into Ricardo's team that brought in a little more creativity, and then Terry and Robert who helped kind of, guide it and help us find our roles. Because as J-Dub alluded to, he was finding his role. And I think in 05, 06, early 07, a lot of us were finding our roles and redefining sort of what we were and how we went. And in that sort of roller coaster, we had some games where everyone in the world kind of sat back and said, oh man, if they can string this together, this team is phenomenal. And in 05, we struggled with that. In 06, we started to, and I think by the summer of 07, and then throughout 08, with the exception of one game in Serbia during, Kosovo's independence, when that's a whole another long and crazy story. But I'd say the entirety of 08, we were getting traction and the world was starting to take notice. I think much more so than a lot of people here at home. And, again, I think we had, through those trials and tribulations, going through coaches, losing funding, having guys play overseas, we really had to find that commonality and that voice amongst the team. And we'll get into it more later, but we had guys like, Tony and Bailey really step up as kind of the co-captains of the team.
Jeff, you were part of the 04 team in Athens, and a younger guy then, and then gaining more experience as you go along. And as you guys know well, and we've talked to so many former national team athletes over the last 3 months in this kind of pandemic time, whether it was the 04 Olympics, the 2000, 96, you can go down the list. Even if a finish wasn't what people had wanted, if it was a 6th place finish, 7th place finish, it often comes down to this one pivotal game. It wasn't as if the team showed up and wasn't giving it their all. It can be one random quarterfinal or a semi here, and the whole thing that was going in the right direction, kind of goes off the rails. Jeff, what'd you learn from 2004 as you're moving towards 08? Things that you wanted to maybe do differently, or experience that you gained that you wanted to impart on that team?
Yeah, you're right. In 04, I honestly feel like we were one of the top 4 teams in the world. The way our bracket played out, and it's not an excuse, we didn't win. We needed to win. We didn't. But the way our bracket played out, the 3 teams that advanced from our bracket got gold, silver, and bronze. Whereas the other side of the bracket, they didn't do much. And we beat every team we played on the other side of that bracket. So we kind of left a bitter taste in our mouth. We still had to perform and win, but we were like, we're almost there. So kind of like Peter was saying, these little things spark you to keep going. And I know there was talk amongst teams like, we got to come back and do this for 4 more years. We can make it, right? And that was one of the biggest things, I think. We keep alluding to like these 9 guys coming back and adding parts like JW. In the past, if you look at some of the teams, the Olympic teams that we've had, you maybe have, like in 04, we only had 3 returners. And not having a consistent team that can know each other, that's played, that's gone through these things, it can set you back a little bit, right? So us coming back, all these things that kind of happened, it kind of sparked that, right? And you're right, there are some games that stick out in my mind in the Olympics in 08 that kind of where you're saying a pivotal moment. And for me, like you were saying, it was actually when we lost to Serbia in bracket play, for me at least. I think it was a 4-2 game. And I remember coming out of the pool, not mad we didn't win, but not super pissed off, because I'm like, we can play so much better, and this is supposed to be one of the best teams in the world. And for me, it's like, oh, we played horrible and we only let them score 4 goals. They're not going to stop us and only hold us to 2 again. So that kind of sparked it too. And I was like, oh, we got this. And we went on and won our bracket, and kind of rest is history, right? Beat them in the semifinals, and there it was.
Yeah, well, and we're gonna get into some of those great memories momentarily. Ryan, I know you're in the car. Are you on with us here?
Yeah, I'm following along.
Excellent. Hey, so just to get your perspective on this, because you go back to 2000. So that process for you, you were one of the younger guys in 2000. What was that build up for you over the next 8 years as you led into 08?
It was a long, fun process. We had a really close group of guys, and after 2000, I mean, we lost in the quarterfinals to the Russians by a goal on a penalty non-call in the last second of the game, where we would have gone to the medal round. And then in 2004, I totally agree with Jeff that we were the 4th best team in that tournament. We beat the Greeks, who ended up 4th place. We beat them 4 out of 5 times in Greece 2 weeks before the Olympics. And then in 2008, it just kind of all came together for us. And a lot of it has to do with just the amount of time, the amount of games that we played together, and just sticking with it and grinding it out.
JW, you were talking about your experience in 05 as a teenager and then working your way back. And everyone on this call has talked about how if you get more experience as a group, you tend to get better. It becomes just more routine and comfortable. Everyone knows what they're doing. As you're now leading up to 07 and 08, are you feeling that? Like, okay, this is actually really coming together for us. It feels like a really solid unit. What was your take on that time period?
So for me, I think we had a training camp down in San Diego, and we had a day where we had a Navy SEALs training. Mm-hmm. And there was about 25 of us that were there. Actually, one of the guys who was selected for the team, it scared him so much he didn't join us that day. So there was 24. But really, for me, that was the day where I think we all kind of came together. That was one of the hardest training days that I've ever had on the national team. But for me, what it did was it solidified we were all one tribe and we had one mind. And for me, that was the day where I knew that we had something special. And for me, being able to then go through that full Olympic training cycle at home and having some of the guys come home and really start to, contribute not only what they've learned in Europe, but how we as a team can get better and head into the Olympic Games.
Now, as we get into 2008, and I'm going to focus now on the selection of the team, even from the group the year before that had won the Pan Ams to qualify, there's still a few tweaks there. If I recall, I think Brett Ormsby was in the mix and had gotten injured, and some other players had kind of come in 2008. Peter, if you think back to the naming of the team, especially for you, the journey you've taken just to be able to hear your name called and know that you were going to be on this roster, that had to be a special moment.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can remember clear as day the conversation 4 years earlier when I was brought in and named alternate to the 2014, and how devastating yet amazing that whole opportunity ended up being. So I was told to go on vacation, and I showed up a day later to train again. So I just love the team that much. So it was the fact that, you go through this difficult journey, and I have a tendency to overthink things. So for me, even though I was playing right around that time, probably the best water polo of my life, especially defensively. You know, I still had some self-doubt. You still question things, and could I be doing more? Am I doing right? But you believe in the process, and the group of guys, again, like, hate to repeat too much, but we had so much faith in each other at that point. And we had some pretty amazing games and everything leading up to that year. I can't remember if selection was before or after, but we played this game in Hungary, and we've been training hard. I don't remember the name of the town, but we beat the Hungarians, and you could see they were all kind of looking at us like, wait, what just happened? These aren't the same guys. And yeah, that was invigorating. So then when the team's fully announced and all the hard work, and obviously it's hard for some of the guys that get named alternate, and I had a lot of empathy and obviously know what that feels like. So tried to spend some time with those guys, but it was thrilling. But at the same time, you know, you're excited, and then you let that subside and you get right back to work. And now we have an objective to do. We're not going to be tourists. I think a lot of people sometimes, not our group, but I think you definitely have some Olympians who are there for the life experience, which is great. We wanted to win. We wanted to prove everyone wrong, and that's what we set out to do.
Jeff, you had been through this before in 2004. And a lot of guys that trained, and Peter, you were there too, talk about the just hellacious training that went on leading up to 04. I mean, this is stuff that there'll be a book written eventually about it, because everyone comes out with some sort of war story about how epic these workouts were and just how crushing they were. And not that you didn't work hard after that, but I know there's a sentiment that shared experience helped set the foundation for what went on years later. As you're getting named to your second team, how much are you kind of processing all you've been through and that shared experience to then go out and do some great things in China?
A lot, right? Like, we keep on, I mean, I think the underlying thing with all of your questions is that we keep on coming back to team and the group of guys, right? So all of these things play into it. And you're right. For those of us that trained between 2000 and 2004, there were some just gnarly workouts. We're talking upwards of 15,000 meter long swim sets, things like that. Like, in the middle of those swim sets, you're getting out of the pool and just squatting max, racking weights. Like, it was gnarly. But I think without the 2004 thing, we couldn't have gotten 2008, because even the guys that weren't there, they'd heard stories, and the mental toughness that we received from it, knowing that we could put our bodies through almost anything, right? So we were at these, like I think Peter mentioned earlier, we're machines basically, right? And then the whole, I think between 2004 and 2008, what ended up starting happening is we maintained our physical shape, but we started to develop our game more, right? Everyone did. So now we had the machine body, and now we're getting to like the water polo machine mind, where we're melding it together. And that's when we really started playing water polo very, very well. But without any of those experiences, I don't think 2008 would happen. I mean, it brought us all. I mean, we all, that this whole journey, right? I remember actually talking with Radko at the 2008 Olympics after we beat Serbia in the semifinal, and we told him, I think I was with Adam and a couple other people, Adam Wright, and we were like, thank you, like, you're a part of this. Like, we wouldn't be here without you, because all of it added up, right?
Ryan, you had talked about some of the heartbreak you went through in 2004, being so close. What's your mindset going into Beijing then? I imagine there's some sort of sense of like, it's going to end different this time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with Jeff that what we went through between 2000 and 2004 was a big part of it. It's one of those things where it becomes so important to you because you've invested so much time and energy that, it doesn't matter all the outside distractions. If you do it for long enough and with the same group of guys, you start to have an understanding for, what play is going to happen next, where someone's going to be in the pool. And it was just a combined amount of time we were together. I wish I had a better explanation, but we put a lot of work in, and winning a medal made it all worth it. And, in these Olympic games and all of the Olympics that I played in, like winning and losing is decided in a 30-second period. And so being willing to work out for 4 years, to put in all the time that you can, and to understand that it all could come down to one bad bounce or one good bounce. I mean, it's a big commitment, and we had a good group that was willing to do it.
JW, let's fast forward now to getting into China and that first game. And as I'm hearing you guys talk, you all went all over the world. Some of you had been in previous Olympics. Those Beijing games are always so burned in my brain. First time ever leaving the country, ever being somewhere outside of the U.S., and I can still hear them yelling, China, China, before the very first game against China to start off group play. JW, as you walk out there to get ready to play, what's your memory of that environment?
It was life-changing. My father was a world record Olympic swimmer, and he never got to compete in Olympic Games. And for me, it was eye-opening. I still carry that feeling with me today. I remember Dan Klatt was a mentor of mine, and he was on the 2004 team. And I remember him specifically telling me, "You're not an Olympian until you play 1 second of one game." So that was, in my mind, getting my body prepared, getting my mind prepared. And it was almost, for me, it was opening the door, and I was ready to enter the Olympic Games. And I distinctly remember that moment. And I'm with you there, Greg, about the China chants. It was for me, I'll never forget it. It was something I carry with me still to this day. And it's a moment that all of us share together.
Peter, I think before Jeff was talking about that key win over Serbia, but as you work through group play, there was a win over Croatia. At least for me, that felt like notice has been served now. Like the U.S. is here. What do you remember about that game and kind of the reaction after that victory?
I don't remember. I was playing, felt like playing in the zone, playing in the white. And I don't remember a lot of the actual details of any of the games. And sadly, I don't have them on tape to refresh my memory. But I do remember our belief, knowing that we can beat them. And just the kind of role we were starting to get on is we were clearly excited. It's always great to beat one of the best teams in the world. It's always great to beat a former coach. I especially was very happy that we beat him. I loved the guy, but it was alternate, so it was good being like, okay. But I do remember a sense of, again, you set the plan, you're prepared, and as you're going through your game plan, you celebrate the victories, but it's also momentarily because we had a lot more business to do and we were ready to go. So we acknowledged that we beat them. We were excited, but I also remember our team being, essentially saying, we expected this. This was the outcome we planned for. So we're going to go. I mean, not to give Ryan Bailey too much credit because, he's a very confident fella, but we went on this camping trip in Colorado, basically, where we spent a night. We hiked the mountain. We, rode some white rapids, a little team bonding. And we were standing at a campfire, and Bailey, with some language that I won't share here, but very passionately basically said, enough. We're going to win our bracket. We've put in the time. We are good enough players individually and as a team. We're going to get this done. And you look around the fire, and everyone was on the exact same page. And it wasn't a hope. It was, no, this is our business. We're going to take care of it. So I think beating Croatia, beating Italy, great games, great wins. But it was part of the game plan. It was an expectation on our part. Other people might not have believed it, but it was our belief. It was what we were there to do.
Ryan, since he brought it up, what gave you the confidence to give that talk around the fire? What made you know that things were going to go well? Oh, hang on, you're on mute.
Okay, you guys got me?
Yep.
I just believed. So I played with those guys in different places around the world. I knew all the players very well, and I knew what we had, and so confidence was never my problem. And I truly believed in us, and we had been through so much together that I knew we'd be okay, and I knew we could get it done. We beat Croatia a lot, Greg, and it may not have seemed like it, but I feel like we beat them almost every time we played them. The team that really we struggled with traditionally has been Serbia. We'd always beat the Hungarians once a year. We'd kill the Greeks. We'd beat the Italians, and the Serbians were the ones that really got us most of the time.
Yeah, no, and to your point, I guess the Croatian one jumped out because of the coach situation and having that familiarity and there being a nice from a media standpoint interesting storyline there. Jeff, you talked about the Serbia loss in pool play and getting out of that game. I remember, and I looked it up, it was a 4-2 final and feeling like we're there. And if I remember, and to Ryan's point, the losses against Serbia, if you look back like a calendar year leading into Beijing, it kept going like this, like the margin kept getting tighter and tighter and closer. And then it was 2 goals and it was like, whoa, you're right there. What were your thoughts out of that game and what was being said amongst the team? I'm assuming, hoping you got a chance to see him again.
Yeah, you're right. And I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, like you're upset that you didn't win the game, but sometimes when you lose a game, like you have this dejected feeling, like, like you did everything you could and you still couldn't win. But it was kind of the opposite there. Like we played so horrible, and I think that they played so well, and they still only scored 4 goals, and we only, like, no one, I think the 2 goals is the lowest I've ever been held to internationally. So we knew that wasn't going to happen again, but we knew our defense was on point, and that we could hold them again to four goals, maybe even, I think in the semis it was 5 goals. So we could hold them again, and we knew that we could spark our offense. So this optimism, right? We use it also as fuel. This shouldn't have happened, right? And so then we go out and play Croatia, beat them. But the crazy thing is, I remember Peter was mentioning it, everything. We had no time to really celebrate it because in spite of, I think they were the #1 team at the time. If we lost to the Germany the next game, we wouldn't make the medal rounds. So there was no time to like relish, like, oh man, we beat Croatia, great. We had to refocus and get tooled in on Germany, because if we didn't win that game, we don't advance. We don't even make the crossover games. Mm-hmm. So to that point, like it was always just, I remember the feelings walking around with everyone in the village, things like that. I don't know. It was just like I don't want to say hope, because we weren't hoping to win. We knew we were going to win. It's that confidence we've been talking about. It was just kind of exuding off everyone on the team, because we knew we were there to play. We knew we could play, and we were showing everyone it. And honestly, I think some teams were scared of us. No one liked to play us. We were tough. We fought tooth and nail for everything, right? We don't know some of like the European culture sometimes. Like sometimes soccer culture comes into things, and like you take a play off or something like that. No, we're coming at you every single second of every single game, and people didn't like that sometimes. But I loved it. Like I honestly think some teams feared us.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up the Germany game and JW. I remember the end of group play coming and almost being in disbelief, because the team has played so well, but it's going to come down to this game against Germany now to decide what happens. And then, as Jeff described, it's the crazy nature of the Olympic tournament. A loss means no medal round. A win means you win your group, and now you move forward. What do you recall about that Germany game and how everyone kept their composure in a must-win situation?
Yeah, definitely the Germany game sticks out in my mind. I remember it came down to literally an offensive foul on a 5-meter. I remember the big German center got a foul, and he took a backhand and he barred down on Merrill, and it literally
wasn't it Brooks? Wasn't it Brooks, Doug? It was Merrill?
I think it was Merrill, yeah. And it went from not going into play for a medal to then the call being reversed. And I think for us, we, as everyone keeps saying, we're very confident, but we never got set off course. That's what I remember from the Germany game. I remember, I think it got up to 11 or 12 goals we scored, so it wasn't our normal keep teams under about 6-7 goals. So for us, it was a little out of our normal, I would say, tendency during that Olympic Games. But I don't think at any moment we ever paused or ever took our foot off the gas. But that was definitely a scary one because it went from not being in the medal round to having a call. And then even after that, we still had to have a couple other teams play each other to kind of see how the bracket was going to play out.
And then that leads to that chance to play Serbia again. Bales, you talked about your previous Olympic Games, and now you have this chance to be in the semifinals. You're at this brink of getting to play for a medal. You're one of the veterans, Tony. What are the things that are being said to the team before this second game against Serbia, especially knowing how close you were the first time?
Well, the other interesting thing I think, Greg, is Tony was playing in Croatia at that time for the best team in Croatia, and I was playing in Serbia at that time for the best team in Serbia. So we had a really good familiarity with both of those teams. Serbia had beat us probably 50 times in a row prior to the semifinal. They destroyed us most times, and they're a tough group. They're intimidating because we hadn't had a lot of success against them. And just for that one day, it all came together and we drilled them. I mean, there's no other way to put it, but we absolutely tore them apart in that one game on that one day. And hey, you get lucky every now and then. A blind squirrel finds a nut, I guess, in the Olympics occasionally. And that was our day. And everybody had a great game. Everybody contributed. And, it came down to that one, and we came to play and we got it done.
Jeff, we talked about this during your recent Hall of Fame induction. I'll never get tired of watching your goal against Serbia in that game. For me, has always been like in the movie when like the good guy, finally like finishes off the person that they've been battling against for so long. That goal, first of all, it was so hard that I remember ricocheting out of the back of the goal. Like it happened so fast. You rise up, you shoot, it ricochets out, and it is just almost, if I recall, at least in my mind, it was like silence of like disbelief and also like such excitement. What do you remember from that time and just what it signaled? What was about to happen?
Okay.
That shot, Greg, is known as the white whip.
Yeah, I remember the game in general, but the crazy thing is Peter mentioned earlier, like playing in the zone, like the whiteness, whatever it is that you're in. And I like at some point in that game, I remember, I think it was probably like in the fourth quarter, I didn't even realize that Serbia had switched their goalies because we had ended up destroying them, and they'd switched out their goalies, things like that. But we were so focused and so into our own game that it didn't matter what they did. Right. And, everyone stepped up that game, right? And so it was just huge for us. And that's what it kind of came down to. That Serbian team was really heavily reliant on one person. They had great players all around, but they really had one person that tried to always take over the game. And we played as a team. And we were able to just pick them apart and destroy them. But from the actual shot that you were talking about, I got thrown underwater afterwards. So when I popped up, I was kind of looking and everyone was stopping and they had signaled a goal. So I was like, no, right on. but I was thrown underwater after I shot it. So I didn't actually see it go in. Ryan's shaking his head because
he didn't plan for it to go over the goalie's head and ricochet around the goal. He picked it up and threw it as hard as he could, and it went in.
Hey, I learned that from you. You said,
I know.
Right? If there's ever any doubt when you're shooting the ball, this goes
Just
for all
throw
the
it hard.
Throw it as hard as you can.
Right.
Just make sure and get your head out of the way, right, Powers?
I'm sorry, Dubs. Don't.
So the game ends. You guys are moving on now to a final. Peter, a win like this in any team sport means no matter what, there's a medal. But you also have to focus on a gold medal game. How do you balance the excitement but then the preparation?
I mean, great question. That game in particular, like Bailey was saying, I think that win is bigger than the 80 hockey team win over the Soviets. I'm going to claim it right now. It's just, Ryan's right. We played them 48 times, I'd counted once, prior to that Olympics. And the only recollection I have of winning was, I believe, in Fresno, California, with, I think, Steve Rotsar and Goldberg as our referees at a USA water polo fundraiser. So, yeah, note that. So that win was epic. Again, we believed we could do it. We had a plan, and we executed perfectly. So when you go after that kind of a win, you're obviously pumped up. It's hard not to think about the fact that, yeah, you're going to walk out with the medal. But again, I think the medal is, well, it's a symbol of our work. I think it's the icing on the cake. Playing together, fighting for our country, our families, our schools, and each other is the pinnacle of excellence, right? And we wanted more than anything to get Hungary underneath us. We wanted everyone below us. And so it's hard, not to be overexcited for that. You enjoy it the rest of that day, and then you get a good night's sleep and you wake up and you're ready to work that next morning. And I truly believe that. The Olympics is 2 weeks long and it wears on your body, and you lose some muscle, and you got to stay motivated. So I think we were still definitely motivated. And even after the loss, like heartbreaking as it was, it's I didn't really realize the silver medal until I was outside with my family, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess. So.
Bales, you're in that game and you're going up against the Hungary team. I mean, for those that don't know, this is a Hungary team that's on the tail end of their dynasty, right? They've won in 2004, they'd win in 08. And that first half, Team USA is matching them goal for goal. It's a high scoring affair, and the offense is there on both sides. What's your memory of that game and how that one got away late?
It's just one of those. It's a rule in water polo that you're not going to outscore the Hungarians. And for the first half, we did. Well, I mean, we were right there with them. They had a couple goals at the end there that were, they're not lucky, but they were really nice goals that maybe we could have stopped. And then, we just kept trying to score more goals. Unfortunately, the defense probably wasn't there. I mean, they're a great team. There's no doubt about it. But the thing I think about is if I'm going to have a silver medal, I was so disappointed after the game. Of course, the gold medalists are very happy. The bronze medalists are fired up. And the silver medalists, and there's a bunch of pictures of this, are just dejected and sad. And then it took me a year before I felt like, oh, well, at least I have a medal, and this is actually pretty cool, because you're so upset that you didn't get it done in the last game.
Jeff, I'll ask you something similar, but and I think, and Ryan's not wrong. You look at the photos, we just shared one earlier. Everyone looks pretty angry, and knowing how close you were. How did you process that loss? And you then had a chance to go to another Olympic Games, so maybe that gave you additional perspective. How'd you handle it in the immediate aftermath?
With family, friends, teammates. But Ryan's right. I was on the same boat, and I say the story when I go give talks to clubs, things like that. Like, second place, you lost. So it's like this bittersweet thing, and it took me probably a year too, if not maybe a little less. I don't know. But to wrap your head around it, wasn't that we didn't recognize the silver medal as being something special, but it's just you lost, and it just plays on your mind. I don't know how to explain it too much, but it just plays on your mind. So it was kind of hard, but my wife was at the games, so hung out with her after the game. I remember hanging out with Tim Hutton and his now wife afterwards. We were sitting on the street in Beijing having a beer and just kind of like just zoning out there. But it was tough, right? Like we got the medal, but you put all this time in and you're so close to the gold. We were all kind of just bummed out. And I remember kind of being in a trance. Sorry, it was just kind of like this, like, I don't want to say mopey trance, but just like, ugh.
I think we're all still bitter about it, right? I think you still think about it, and you're still like, we appreciate the journey, we appreciate that piece of hardware now, but like when we still get together and have a beer and talk, it's like we had them, right? It's just frustrating.
No, I can gather. JW, do you remember anything from that podium moment? I mean, is there? Obviously there's anger and there's this feeling of closeness. Is there a part of you that is able to put it in perspective, or is it just too quick that you just get out of the pool and it's hard to feel like good about all of this right then?
I would have to say it's hard to when you're in the moment to appreciate it. you're dealing with guys who had spent, 12 years of their lives to try and win a gold medal, and to have you to be so close, and yet it's now so far. I think it was hard for all of us. I really feel like, not that I let my teammates down, but I think we were all feeling very somber, and it was almost, now we're going to have to wait 4 more years to get another chance to do this again. So it's hard to get outside of the moment and look at a macro level. But, for me, I was, very lucky to be a part of this team. And, I learned a lot of valuable lessons that I still carry with me today from, I think, that moment of overcoming adversity.
I had the benefit of talking to some guys that played a while back, and Craig Wilson was on the 84 and 88 teams that won silver. Chris Doris, silver medalist. Peter Schnug, due to no qualification and a boycott, probably the best player in U.S. men's water polo history to never make an Olympic team, given what he went through. That could probably be debated. But Peter, all these guys came back to the same thing, the bond that was created among their teammates. Yes, they get together and they can lament what didn't happen, but for some of those guys, it's been 40 years, and it's like they pick right back up where they left off. When this group gets together, whenever we can again in real life, what is it like when you're able to see all your 08 teammates?
Wow, that's a great question.
We've had a couple Zoom calls lately, Greg. So this, we have actually gotten together a couple times.
Oh, good.
Bailey did miss the last one, I believe, maybe 2 actually. God. Sorry, I just got to give you a hard time. The, it's a fraternity, right? We have, I alluded to a few stories earlier. Like when you think back to what the world was like, I remember one of my first trips to Serbia, I was rooming with Bailey, and we stayed in a Hotel Yugoslavia, that NATO planes had bombed a year and a half earlier. And literally at the end of the hall was a plastic tarp that went to open air, right? Like you go through these life experiences. I alluded to that 2008 Kosovo, I don't remember how many blocks away from our hotel, the US embassy was being burned down because we supported Kosovo's independence. Like, not just the in the pool battles, the traveling together, but these real life, world events that we all experience together. And when you get together, and it's not too as often as we all would like, you kind of definitely fall into step, I think, with everyone. And luckily, Bailey and I work in the same area and same industry, so we get to connect a little more often than I do with the other guys. And we're trying to set up a more routine reunion. Something. That's why. Where's Peter Morales? He's our group secretary, right? He seems to be able to control calendars better than anyone.
Like you're saying, it does. I mean, I was actually the only one I really see on a semi-consistent basis from this team is Ryan, because we live pretty close. We actually went for a swim this morning, an open water swim. But yeah, when you run into these guys, I remember one time I went up, I was in the Bay Area for like 2 nights or something. I called up Dubs, and I was like, hey, you free? And we went out and had sushi and stuff and just were talking, had a good old time. So yeah, you just kind of pick up right where you left off, like you were mentioning, and I'm sure it'd be the same. The Zoom calls have been similar. Yeah, we just pick up, like someone comes on and we have 50 nicknames for them, and it just starts right there.
Guys, J-Dub, Bailey, any similar thoughts as far as it pertains to getting back together in person with these guys when you get the chance?
Yeah, for me, I'm now 32 years old, and a lot of the guys were around that age when they were at our 2008 Olympics. So for me, it's amazing to see the families that they've grown and how everyone has moved forward in life. And it puts a little perspective for me now, being the age of a lot of the guys who were in my age in 2008. But yeah, definitely, I would say we don't skip a beat. There's a lot of voices on our team that are very loud, and it's hard to get through sometimes. But these guys are all my brothers. I've always, since I've been on the team, looked at them as my older brothers, and I've been able to learn a lot from them, and I still do to this day.
And the only thing, Greg, that I would add is that we've been through wars together, so I mean, I do anything for any of these guys, and we've been through a lot. Peter mentioned some of the things, but there's a lot of good times too that happen in there, and just it's a good group, good sport, good group of people involved, and we had a great time.
That's what I picked you for. I felt like we hear enough from Tony and Merrill and Adam Wright, so we got to make sure we spread the love to everyone on the 2008 team. Ryan, I want to ask you this question because it came up with the 1984 team after they had been the next Olympic Games after the 80 boycott. It was a big deal in 08 when you all won silver because it hadn't happened in 20 years. Ryan, you were part of the program for a long time. Was there any part of you that felt like you were able to accomplish something for all these guys that had worked hard in the past and weren't able to reach the podium?
I mean, I was a part of a lot of those teams since they didn't reach the podium, but you know, my father was involved with the team in '84. He was a trainer at the Olympics for the team. And so those guys in the 84 and 88 group were my heroes growing up. And I saw them play a lot at Belmont Plaza Pool. And so it was good to just kind of live up to what I thought it was supposed to be because I'd seen them do it. And it was nice because if we had gone through all that we went through, Greg, and spent, 8 years of your life in the water, and then not won a medal, it would have been really hard to live down for me. So we earned it. I'm confident that we worked harder than any other team and we earned it. And so it just felt like just kind of the culmination of a lot of work and a lot of years and being with the group for as long as we were. It was satisfying in that way. Just because we earned it, I felt like we earned it and we put it all together when we needed to.
Guys, this is awesome. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to share some memories here. I know these talks could easily go another 2 or 3 hours with all the stories you have, but hopefully we've shared some important stories and memories for the current generation of water polo fans and players to remember what this 2008 team accomplished. Really appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you very
Greg.
much.